So welcome back to our discussion about Ayurveda. A really central concept, of course, to Ayurveda is the three doshas, and this is what people are often the most interested in, and I always try and curb that a little bit in this program because it's really helpful information to have about yourself, and yet as Westerners I find that we really, we like to sort of draw a square, a box, and put ourselves inside of it, and that's not all that helpful when it comes to living in the world or an Ayurvedic lifestyle. So I want to present the doshas to you in such a way that you realize that they're a useful tool to have, but if you pigeonhole yourself into what you think your dosha is, you might actually miss the true power of Ayurveda, which is really self-referral. And self-referral is the idea that every day you actually pay attention to how you feel. And that can be different from day to day. I think for most of us it is. So you don't have the same hunger every day. You don't have the same cravings or desires every day. You don't feel the same after every meal. So the idea really is to constantly be in that state of self-referral, meaning not object referral. So you're not associating your identity with something outside of you, like say something you read in a magazine that this type of food is good for you. You're actually paying attention to how you feel after you eat it. So the three doshas are at the heart of Ayurvedic theory. We have Vata dosha, and we always describe the Vata type of person like, say, a ballerina or like Annie Hall, flitting around. Vata is made up of air and space, so it's sort of airy, right? It's moving, it's dry, it's light. And we describe the person that has a lot of Vata dosha as having those tendencies, flitting around, lots of movement, maybe dry skin, dry hair, light body weight. And then we have Pitta dosha. And Pitta dosha is a combination of fire and water, but it's mostly fire. So we describe the fiery Pitta type as being like the red-headed chef who works in like a heated environment, maybe has a sharp temper. And Pitta types actually are often more likely to be businessmen, right? They're very sharp intellect, sharp tongue, very organized people. They have more of a medium body type, and they're a little more inclined to sweat than the Vata ballerina, so they have some of that fluidity of the water element. And then we have Kapha dosha. And Kapha dosha is a combination of earth and water, but it's mostly earth. So we think of Kapha dosha as being heavier, more stable, more solid, grounded. So Kapha people are really wonderful to be around because they tend to be very stable. They're patient, they're loyal, they're very forgiving. They also have that heavier build, so they're a little heavier again than the Pitta type. Sometimes they need like a little extra nudge to get going. They kind of like to be stable. They like to stay home. They like to be on the couch. But here's the thing. Vata governs all movement. Pitta governs all transformation. And Kapha governs all structure. So, in fact, all of us is a combination of all three doshas. We're all tridoshic. However, most of us have a tendency towards one or two predominant doshas. So you might really recognize in yourself that you are a true Vata type, or a Pitta type, or a Kapha type. But for many of us, we sort of see, like I have more of a Pitta type of body, but I tend to feel very scattered, so I think I have a Vata mind, so you're a Pitta Vata type, for example. Or you might have more of a Pitta mind, you're very organized, very sharp, but more of a Kapha body, a little heavier, tendency to sweat. So you would be a Pitta Kapha type. And then even more rare is somebody being in equal parts all three doshas, so Vata, Pitta, and Kapha together, which doesn't mean more balanced at all. In fact, everybody is a unique combination, so one combination can't be more balanced than the other. So hopefully, when you took the dosha questionnaire and in our discussion, you started to get an idea of what we would say is your dosha type. So each of us is born with a unique constitution of the three doshas. So it might be very clear to you that for your whole life you've been strongly Vata or Pitta or Kapha. If something's really just changed within the last few years, for example, you used to be quite settled and you always had like good stamina and were quite strong, and then in the last few years you really feel the influence of Vata, say insomnia or restlessness or anxiety or weight loss, then that's probably not your body type. It's probably external factors factors that are influencing your body and your mind. So I don't want you to get too stuck on this idea of your dosha type, because the problem is that just because you have this dosha type that doesn't necessarily change, everything else is changing all the time. You're growing older, the seasons are changing, the time of day is changing, and all of that influences how we feel, how we look, how we react to things, our emotions. So it's important to know that as we're looking at the 3 doshas. What's helpful, though, is to really understand the doshas in terms of the elements. So Vata is air and space. It's light, it's dry, it's rough, it's moving, it's quick. Pitta is fire and water, so it's hot and sharp. And then Kapha is earth and water, so it's heavy, stable, slow, dull. This is helpful because that's how we start to understand how to, if you like, treat imbalances. So here's the secret. Dosha doesn't actually mean body type. Dosha actually means that which can become imbalanced. So Vata dosha signifies to you that your movement in your body, the winds in your body, if you like, can become imbalanced. They can blow too much. We would experience too much movement. That would be anxiety, restlessness, insomnia, weight loss. Or there's a blockage in the body, so the winds aren't blowing in your body. That would be things like constipation, right? Or weight gain. Right? A lot of people don't associate Vata with weight gain, but it's actually common. If you've had weight gain later in life, you weren't always a heavier body type. It's a Vata imbalance. Now, Pitta is transformation. It's fire. So what it means to have Pitta dosha would mean that your fire can become imbalanced. You could have too much fire, and that would be, for example, losing your temper, right? Road rage, inflammation in your skin, inflammation in your body, loose stool, diarrhea, heartburn, acid reflux. And of course, you could have too low of a fire. Fire could be burning awfully dim, which would probably look like sluggish bowels, sluggish digestion, lack of enthusiasm, lack of vitality. And then Kapha dosha is mostly earth and a little bit of water. And so we can also have that too much earth, too much stability, which would be weight gain, lethargy, depression, sleeping for 10, 12, 14 hours, things like that. Basically laziness and obesity. Or not enough earth, which kind of looks like too much vata, right? And then becomes ungrounded, restless, scattered, insomnia. So this is really what it means to understand the doshas, is paying attention to when you start to feel what we would call imbalances in Ayurveda in your body, which is anything which doesn't feel like really vital. The goal with Ayurveda is that each of us sleeps well, wakes up, feels vibrant and refreshed, has energy, has goals and passions, and the energy to pursue those goals and passions, that each of us digests our meals well and feels good after eating. So if you're not feeling any of those things, or you're not feeling all of them, then you start to look at what it is that you are experiencing. And let's say you feel generally heavy. Could be weight gain, but it might just be more heaviness in your mind, or you don't really feel inspired. Then we would think of that as a little too much earth, right? Or too much kapha. And we would want to respond to that with foods and behaviors that have the opposite qualities. This is the principle of opposites, and it's the key to unlocking Ayurvedic science. So we would treat heaviness with foods that are light and dry, like barley, apples, pears, sprouts. We would also treat heaviness with activities that are active and invigorating. So we would actually approach excess kapha with lots of vigorous exercise, running, biking, hiking. Probably not swimming because it's a little cooling, and kapha has a coldness to it. It's earth and water. But vigorous yoga, lots of brisk sun salutations, brisk walking, and things like that. And then warmth. Kapha is naturally cold, so we would want warm meals and warm beverages, sitting in the sauna, if that's available to you. So this is how we treat in Ayurveda. We do the opposite. If you're experiencing too much pitta or too much fire, right? Maybe you've been losing your temper, or you have a skin rash or heartburn, too much fire. So we would, of course, approach that with foods that have the opposite. qualities, which doesn't mean cold foods, because even they are not helpful in this type of scenario, but foods that are cooling and blander. So that would mean whole grains, dairy, vegetables, but not so much spices, right? So we would say in a pitta type digestion, we would want a lot less spices. Sweet foods, so fruits and vegetables that are sweet are going to be best for pitta types, not too heavy on the oils. And mostly, like I said, sort of blander foods, which can be hard for pitta types because pittas tend to like spicy curries, spicy Mexican food, and hot sauce, but we kind of want the opposite. So foods that are cooling include dairy, cucumber, coconut, cilantro, parsley, fennel. Fennel is a great spice to use with excess pitta. Also cumin. Cumin has a cooling quality. And then cooling activities. So the pitta person, we would say you can enjoy daily exercise, but maybe you don't want to be doing hot yoga or really heating, vigorous, competitive activity. Swimming is actually fantastic for pittas, but they have good stamina, so they can enjoy running, walking, but being outside in nature is actually very good for pitta, to be in cooling environments, non-competitive, non-heating. And then of course meditation is really important for pitta types. So that's how we would balance pitta, but let's say you're experiencing too much vata. Scattered, restless, ungrounded, anxious, insomnia, constipation, dryness. It might not be all of those things, but let's say a few of those jumped out at you. We would call that too much vata, or too much air in your experience. And we would want to soothe that with foods and behaviors with the opposite qualities. So things that are actually a bit heavier, almost the opposite of what we did for kapha. We would think good quality oils. Heavier foods would be things like nice moist stews, soups, like our crock pot meals, these types of things. We're not trying to drown vata, of course, in like a heavy cheesecake or something like that. But nice, nourishing, comforting foods, warm milk before bed. It's nice for vata types to have stewed fruit, nice sweet juicy fruits. They have a lot of dryness, so we think about oils, juicy fruits, sweet vegetables as well. And then, of course, the vata type of imbalance really deserves extra rest. So restorative yoga, meditation. Yoga is fantastic in general for all three dosha types. With a lot of vata, you might want a gentler form, or you just come to the class that you like and you can modify. You can bring your back knee down and land. You don't have to do every chaturanga, of course. And then with exercise, we don't want vatas to overdo it. So if you're experiencing a lot of those symptoms and you are an extreme athlete, then we want to find a way to balance that, whether it means that you have more rest days, you really honor the body. Of course we want you to enjoy the things that you love, but we don't want you to go overboard and become depleted. So that's how we balance the three doshas. Things that can make the doshas go out of balance: basically doing too much or eating too much things that have the same qualities that you already have. So if you're naturally a very kapha type of person, you have that natural heaviness, then we don't want to add more heaviness. The kapha type probably shouldn't be sleeping till noon, eating heavy foods, taking lots of naps, right? Same with the pitta person. We don't want them having lots of spicy foods. We don't want them doing very competitive things all the time, or like sitting in the hot tub for hours every day. And the vata person, we don't want them outside in the cold without proper clothing. We don't want them staying up late, running around, doing too many responsibilities, too many activities. So knowing that foods and activities with certain qualities will increase those qualities in your body and in your mind, and we treat with the opposite. The other things that are helpful to know are, of course, what time of life you're in. So if you are up to the age of 30, meaning you're younger than 30 now, you're still in your kapha time of life, the growth time of life, so you might experience a natural heaviness, and we would counter that with more activity. If you're between 30 and around 60, that's the pitta time of life. So you have a natural fire. We want to stoke that fire, but we don't want too much, so we don't want too much stress. And then from about 60 onwards is the Vata time of life. So if you're older than the age of 60, you want to start to slow down a little bit. Use lots of oils, not just in your food, but on your skin, because aging is drying out. That's what aging is. So Vata time of life is from 60 onwards. And then the seasons are really important to understand too. Right now we're in winter season, moving into Kapha season, right? Or we're in winter season, which is Vata season, and we're moving into spring, which is Kapha season. So winter is dry, like Vata. Spring tends to be moister and heavier, like Kapha. And then, of course, summer is hot, so it's Pitta. And then once we get back into fall, especially here in the mountains, we feel that dryness again. So really late fall, early winter are both what we would call Vata season, and then late winter, spring are Kapha. So Kapha season is marked by heaviness, by moisture. It's a great time of year to do a cleanse, to eat light, dry foods, to get extra exercise. Pitta time of year is summer, there's extra heat, so it's a good time of year to swim, to enjoy cooling foods. And then Vata time of year, it's cold, it's dry, this is a good time for us to buy all those lovely squashes and make some nice soups and get extra rest and do oil massage on our skin. So these are the doshas. Hopefully this has been a little bit illuminating to you. The biggest thing that I want to convey to you is that everything is changing all the time in Ayurveda. This is a really central principle in both yoga and Ayurveda. So it's not like we figure out what dosha type we are and we just eat the same way for the rest of our lives. Unfortunately, everything's always changing. So what's most important is this art of self-referral, of recognizing what you're feeling and be able to assign it some qualities like hot, cold, dry, light, rough, smooth, heavy, oily, these sorts of qualities. And then you can just learn to apply behaviors and foods that have the opposite qualities, and we can sustain balance in our lives.